Good afternoon. How are you today? Well, it's 60 degrees. It's late in the day. The sun is coming down on us, but it's pleasant. I spent the day working on a new case. Can't describe, but it's got some challenges, and I think we have a good chance of making a good result for the client. That's our objective in every case, of course. Edward Bennett Williams said, asked what it took to be a trial lawyer, and he said, a steel butt. What you find is that lawyers, young and old, who are comfortable in a courtroom, forget that they actually have to have content to discuss with the jury, the judge, or whatever. And that's the hard part, doing your homework and then making the connections that make a difference. And not all cases have those, and that leads to settlement discussions when that happens, or should. So what do we got today going on? Well, there's only one story that really interests me, and it's the one involving Trump, of course, it seems to me, in the neighborhood of the first and therefore historic indictment of a president, a former president in this case, of the United States. And some say, well, should the charge be this? What could be more appropriate than prosecuting him for trying to cheat in an election, when the more recent scandal is how he tried to steal the election that he lost. Now, there's a theme between the current charge and what it is that he did on January the 6th. So, and I think, the crimes are serious enough. If you were to put out that much money to bribe someone, don't you think it's relevant that voters should know about that? Which is what the campaign laws are supposed to be about, making the facts transparent to the voters, who consider whether those facts make them move to support or disapprove of a candidate. And his positions aren't the only question. And in the case of Trump, we had a real character question. Remember, he has this silly thing about grab the whatever within the same period of time that he's trying to conceal that he's off having affairs while pretending to be a family man. And I think it's all relevant and important. And when I was a young prosecutor, there were much less charges brought in terms of the severity of the offense, given the opportunity a person has when talking to the public and seeking their support for office. Now, one of the arguments against the current prosecution, which appears imminent, and in this case by imminent I mean days. Wednesday the grand jury sits. It's possible that day. I don't know if they sit Friday, but obviously the grand jury has to sit to vote on the true bill. And the prosecutors have been discussing with the grand jury. So it's not, I would be surprised if it was a long drawn out process, as long as the local grand jury for the New York DA's office takes. So, but the current argument is, hey, the feds didn't prosecute Trump. They only prosecuted Cohen. And Costello the other day came up there and said, well, I'm not with the Trump people, although he is. And I basically convinced them that, Cohen was not a reliable witness. And that's nonsense. Poppycock, somebody from another generation might say. Or Lordy, can you believe that? And that's somebody from our generation who had a very mixed role in all these investigations and prosecutions. So why isn't it true that if the federal government didn't prosecute it, why is the DA's office prosecuting it? Well, it goes like this. A guy named Barr sat on Berman, the prosecutor's shoulders, and wanted him to stop the investigation having anything to do with Trump. He ultimately fired him. And he went one step further. The Justice Department, through the various representatives of the AG, they wanted him to actually dismiss the case against Cohen. Now, why would Trump want to do that? Trump would want to do that because he didn't want to pardon him but he'd like to have it go away. And he had Barr over there at the Justice Department, so-called Justice Department, so why not do that? So if you want to make the argument about what the feds did, you could say, well, the feds didn't prosecute what they would have prosecuted if there wasn't pressure from Barr and others at Justice and from the president himself, who ultimately fired Berman, the U.S. attorney, who just wouldn't heal. Here, dog, do what I tell you. Come on, do this, do that. That's pretty interesting stuff. And how do we know all this? Well, for one thing, there's a public record of it as it was happening. And for another, there's a book that Berman wrote that describes with more precision and detail what I've just said. And I'm told by a friend as I was walking out that the same theory now has been talked about on the air. So it's out there, and it's in the conversation, and it should have been in the conversation from the beginning. But people don't always make the connection between the fact that matters and the misstatement by McCarthy and others as this is going down. So to sum it up, why did Costello go before the grand jury? He went before the grand jury, I don't think to persuade them, because by this point, the grand jury, they know Cohen, they know the case, they're ready to indict. They've been told about when that could happen inside the grand jury. They've been told that. I would guess that Trump's people know the range of dates when this could go forward and knew it could be something like Tuesday. And that triggered the 7 a.m. tweet from our former felonious president. And so we're at a situation where we're ready to go. And McCarthy and these people want to say, hey, feds didn't do it, so why should we? Well, the feds didn't do it because there was a thumb on the scale, and it was Trump and Barr that really prevented them from doing it. So here we are. If you want justice, the DA's office is the answer, because the DA is now going to prosecute Trump for what the Barr administration did everything it could to prevent from being charged. Now that is justice. And, Trump seems to be affected by it. This is the history of bullies. Bigger and more powerful, and they're just full of vim and vigor. I wouldn't surprise me that soon we have a crying jag from the victim of all victims, the omni-oppressive wannabe monarch of America, who's finally charged with one of a number of offenses. And isn't it nice that it sort of covers several beats? Not only is it a form of election fraud, when he's a private person, he does it, but then the transactions occur when he's president, right? The money, when he writes the checks in that kind of funny handwriting of his. And so we have that, and we have him in a sex scandal, which is who he is, over a lifetime of public scandals with wives and girlfriends and all sorts of crazy things. And he's being found out in a county that perhaps more than any other county in America knows who this guy is, watched him as I did, being a New Yorker who lived in the Bronx and Manhattan while there. And we all knew him. We all watched him, with his failed casinos and his deals with politicians for buildings and his lies about how high this building was or that building was. So we know the character of the man. There is none. And all these people who are taking his side, they should be run out of politics. We don't have time in our politics for people who would defend a criminal. And, oh yes, he hasn't been convicted yet, but he will be. He will be. No New York County is going to let this guy go. And maybe that's the best thing about what Bragg's doing. This guy has run the rope long enough. It's now time to take him down. So I'm hopeful. I got a bottle of champagne. I won't break it until he's indicted. So I'm hoping that'll be tomorrow, Friday, next Monday. Now, do I have any reservation it won't happen? Yes, I do, because we watch these guys break our hearts, you know, suggesting they're going forward and they're doing something, and then they don't do anything. But this one feels, it really feels, I don't know if you've ever surfed, but, and I haven't recently, trust me on that, but to know that you have the wave is you have your board and your legs are in the water and you feel a tug of the water going out, meaning there's water coming in, the wave you're going to catch. I feel that politically now in this single place. And we can hope that by doing this in New York, Georgia breaks. I have no hope that Garland will ever wake up. He'll probably even take credit for what others do. Why he hasn't been fired, there's only one possibility. This is what Biden wants. Shame on you, Biden. This guy attacked your family, attacked your son, attacks everything you say, attacks the nation and the country, tries to ignore the law, tries to steal the election from you, makes fun of how you dealt with COVID. It's not acceptable. A person like this should be taken down in a legal sense and punished for what he's done to this nation. So that's what I got to say, and that's what I'm saying here in my cathedral of trees growing greener every day. Bye-bye.